Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary. You are listening and watching the Use Case Podcast. We have Frank on from NetPresenter, and we're going to be learning all about his technology. Frank, would you do us a favor and introduce yourself?
I'm Frank Hoen. I'm founder and then CEO of NetPresenter. Been at it for a very, very long time. I believe in 1980 I soldered my first computer together as a teenager and made it my business. It's been quite a ride all these years. Yeah.
Nice. So, Frank, tell us a little bit about NetPresenter. What is NetPresenter? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Let's kick this thing off and learn more about you.
The interesting thing is that NetPresenter was actually established in 1995, 1996. Some problems just persist. It's like, how do you get messages across? How do you people see your messages, to remember your messages? And it only got worse. Nowadays, it's people are just using their phones more than your intranet. How do you actually get them connected to your organization? How do you get your messages across? And there's much more to it than a boring intranet and an app, which 99% of our competitors do. It could and can be a lot more fun. And we're a bit extraordinary in that. We do a couple of things very differently than the rest.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Just in 1995, we were actually looking at the PC revolution. That was the beginning of networks. It was very basic then, but we're looking at how can you actually get your messages across in an excellent way. And we knew these big digital signage screens you had even then. Very expensive and specialized hardware and computer, very difficult. And we're like, bloody hell, you have all these computers in your network, thousands and thousands of them sometimes. Why not have a kind of like digital signage on your desktop? Use your existing network. Use what you have, all that unused screen real estate, instead of buying these expensive screens and everything. And that's what we did. And I think one of the first acts upon testing this, we have American roots, was, we had some people working at the Pentagon, and I believe one of the first informal acts, never formal of course, was we brought down part of the Pentagon network, basically, because one of the guys was working there and he was testing it. He's not working there anymore. I'm not going to name him. We just needed to test something and ensure how the software was performing in terms of bandwidth uses and everything. That was one of the first things we did. And because basically, if you want to have signage, screens, video, all these things running on your network, you should be very, very sure that it doesn't bring down your network in terms of bandwidth, in terms of CPU and all these things. And we found a solution for that problem, and the rest, as they say, is history. First users were, for example, the Sonys, the Nokia of this world, then very big, but also US Space Command. And I still, at shows we went to Comdex and shows like that.
Oh, yeah.
And we had very enthusiastic Navy people coming up. Yeah, our battle group runs your software and we're very happy with it. Because we mimicked the Star Trek Red Alert flashing water. We mimicked that. So they literally had these when they had an exercise, it was like all over all computers on these carriers and cruisers were displaying that. And we're like, hang on, we only sold a couple of hundreds of licenses to US Space Command. How come the whole bloody US Navy seems to be using this software? Who can you send? So we were just a small organization then. That was fun. It's a nice story. It didn't buy us anything, but it was.
I kind of feel like I can envision you, Frank, sitting in this like dorm style room with a bunch of monitors, developing this platform, like just having a blast developing this.
Yeah,
I feel like you enjoyed that.
Yeah,
it was basically you go into organizations and all their devices. We started with the PCs, digital signage on the desktop, which we use as a screensaver mechanism in order not to interrupt you at work. But imagine going through, for example, one of our big hospital customers. And it's running everywhere. It's running on the signs, on the big screens. It's running on the nursing stations, on the computers there. It's running on the tablets. It's on the mobile devices. If there's an emergency, it's a full-blown emergency alert.
Right.
because our system is actually being used as an Amber Alert system in many
Right.
countries. So it's
Right.
extremely scalable and robust. But imagine all these screens displaying your messages. That's the ultimate cool, because instead of you having to maneuver to certain areas in your hospital or company, or hoping that people visit the intranet, which they seldom do except book holidays, I guess. Imagine your key messages being everywhere. That's just, and literally it's a blast, because you can literally control everything you put on there. It's
How
fun.
is it today? Because, one of the things, I mean, first of all, there's a lot of still in-person work, but with remote work and hybrid work, when we're shipping computers to a place, how does, and again, obviously the business has changed a bunch since you started it, so what does it look like today?
Well, there you are. You're working from home, and you're so-called part of a company, but you maybe rarely visit that company and
Right.
your colleagues. And so, how do you actually get social cohesion, or the must-know of your organization? How do you get that? Obviously, everybody is of HR spamming you via email, which you always ignore. Again, the internet, extremely useful. Most of our customers have, for example, tools like SharePoint, extremely reliable, robust, but it's difficult being famous if nobody recognizes you. It's an old European saying. It's like it's on there, but if
Right.
nobody sees it, it doesn't exist. Imagine that your headlines from your intranet, the key information you want between the ears of employees, is actually all over the place. There was an infamous guy, from Europe, who once said, quantity has a quality of its own. I'm gonna name the guy. It's he wasn't so respectful when lies, but that's another matter altogether. Basically, we repeat the living daylight out of your key messages, and imagine that being out there. That's impossible to ignore. Obviously, you don't do that while you're at work. You don't want pop-up windows in your face while at work. You want you're on a coffee break, and there runs the screensaver. If there is an emergency, we take over these devices, evident. But imagine that your messages are gently brought to you. An intelligent AI is monitoring what you've seen, what you've recognized, and it actually can snooze information or emphasize information based on needs to be disseminated. So basically what we're doing is we're giving organizations back a fighting chance, knowing that most of the employees, again, are spending more time on the internet than on social media than on their intranet. That's the whole thing. Organizations forget that it's possible to connect with their employees, even them working at home. And that brings a lot of problems for them.
Yeah. So Frank, give us a couple of specific use cases. Give us a specific use case that the audience can grab on to understand the type of messaging and what they would expect.
It can be anything you put on screens. But if you're actually talking about important stuff, it could be things like, social cohesion is important, sharing your successes or whose birthday and things like that. But it could be things like compliance, cybersecurity awareness, even if it could be like the poor guys from the help desk, typically putting the most asked questions on there. It's anything which the organization needs to run smoothly. And having that information out there and sometimes it's actually relatively little information, can actually smoothen the organization, because it's like basically saying, hey, management, what would you like every employee to know in general and today, and specifically for this location? That could make such a big difference. Now, translate that to Ryan, you're working from home, I see, and imagine that the information, what's important of the organization, automatically is brought to you in a gentle, friendly way, and that you feel connected, maybe again, to the organization. They see that they appreciate you because they bring you information while they're not spamming you. So
sending you emails.
Exactly. That's
it's coming to me in a nice, subtle way that I can consume it, act on it, and not feel annoyed.
Yeah, and the act can be just, now I know. This is all corporate devices, not personal devices. So corporate laptops,
it could be.
corporate
Well, exactly. But obviously, some customers, they have their mobile devices of their.
Right.
They say, well, here's the app you can download, and that's sometimes on personal device. But you're right. Now, the essence is that that information is already in the organization,
Right.
but the people just don't know about it, and that's the essence. So they spend millions and millions on intranets, and the information is gathering dust there. Well, you feel maybe not connected to the organization, or the information you need to do your work properly is there, but it's not gently brought to your attention without disrupting you. So
So
that's
who's running the messaging? Is that employee communications, or where's it from?
typically it's employee communications, because this is a tool. It's all Marshall McLuhan again. It's the medium
Right.
is the message. Some information is just meant to be brief and concise and immediate and available. You know, ISO manuals or big compliance manuals don't lend themselves well for tools like us.
Right.
It's all about what is important, what matters, what brings good spirits in the organization. If you have that, and for example, can reduce the amount of people who leave your organization if only a little bit, brilliant. But then you have an active shooter alert, for example, or
Right.
a tornado warning, and then comes our alert kind of platform kind of robustness into play, because it's that as well. So it combines emergency notifications with being able to broadcast information with a smart AI. And if you mix that into modern day tools, it's the first time, because repetition is proven to be so powerful as a mechanism. You know, look at politicians in the US, they repeat the living daylight of information. At the end, everybody believes them. It's a very powerful tool, and we believe, and what we're seeing from our customers, they get back a fighting chance against the almighty algorithms from external platforms, which is taking so much time of their employees.
Right.
Because how else would you do that? You know, we can't do monitor employees. You can't. That's against the law. It's
Right. So now, Frank, you mentioned a couple of times smart AI. Talk about that a little bit. How are you infusing AI into the platform?
it's obviously you can switch it off. And I should always say that, because
Right.
some
Of
people,
course.
it's like the cloud, and you probably recognize that a couple of years ago the cloud was you should use the cloud for enterprise, and now
Mhm.
everybody's using it. Probably the same will happen with AI. I'm sure you agree
Right.
with me. So you can switch it off. You can just use NetPresenter and repeat a lot of your key messages. You're
Right.
perfectly fine. If you bring in the AI, then interesting stuff starts to happen. You know, obviously we were first in this segment of employee communication to integrate chat API into our platform, which now everybody has. But we have something called smart campaigns, and essentially what that is that you can literally have pieces of information. You say to the AI, hey, this group or this department of this location should know this. You can say 85% should know that. And the AI just starts sending it out. It monitors via small polls and questionnaires. It
Right.
can be via QR codes or via pop-ups or on your app. It monitors a small fraction of your population, and
Right.
then it can actually snooze messages or ramp them up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, it knows the information you put on there, and then
Right.
this makes testing questions, very short ones, click, 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 and you're done. But the essence of that is that it, in the end of the day, they know, for example, these cybersecurity awareness messages or
Right.
these compliance, because that's statistically proven. The AI has taken care of that, and that means you don't spam people with messages they already understand, while the messages they don't yet understand get special attention. And this is actually something that's a world first for us. It's the world first, I should say, because this way of using an AI, you basically mix broadcast with AI, where the AI monitors and steers then who receives what and when. That is extremely powerful, because I'm not using the word brainwashing here, but basically that information.
Right. And again, you can segment. What I love about this is different groups, different times, all the different messages, all that stuff. And with smart AI, you can even get smarter with those types of things. If something's an emergency, well, it's an emergency, and you can broadcast that. that's different. Everyone needs to know about that.
But yeah,
But
yeah.
being
But
able to
if it's a fire, I'm happy to know that. And sorry, William, for interrupting you.
no, you're fine. How did your business change during COVID?
It's during COVID, everybody was like, there was blind panic in the corporate world, and
Yeah.
because people working from home and some management by walking around, that was a bit more difficult. And
Yeah.
people were like, no, we're going to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to think about new ways of connecting with their staff. So we had a big boom because of COVID, people working from home. Frankly, it never went completely quiet after that because people remain working
Right.
at
Once
home. It's
once
just,
they're engaged. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so that was a big one for us. Yeah.
What would you say the most consumed channels are? Is it because you have different ways to disseminate this
Mhm.
information? Where do you find most of the employees are more receptive?
Yeah, that's a good question. And actually, you can the sort of information which is most easily digested is not so dissimilar from your social media or
Right.
TikTok or
Right.
it's anything that's entertaining is more digestive. It just digests better. So
Mhm.
anything where you can add a entertaining component to it is more easily digested. It helps. So it helps to add a moving GIF, for example, to which can be generated based on the messages you have. If you make it a little bit more fun, it's more easily digested. If it's personal, if it's it's not to be
CEO talking something about mental health or something like that where they get personal or they heal themselves. People love that
no,
type of.
yeah, frankly, to a little extent, but I
Yeah.
would argue that if you're knowing that your colleague is pregnant or your neighbor is in the hospital, that's even more personal, and
Yeah.
it's kind
Yeah.
of like there is the facts, there's the stuff you need to know, the cold hard information, and then there's the human side. And what we always
Right.
say, if there's the human side mixed in with the other stuff, you need to know if there's a good fair mixture of that, then that is more easily, would tend that more easily sticks. Now,
Right.
the important other thing is that, again, repetition. We're building on a lot of research here that repetition is changing the way we perceive information. People think it's their memory, and or they even think it's true. It's
Right.
so that is a very interesting mechanism of influence, which is very, very underestimated. Obviously, all advertising is based on it. Why do you
Right.
prefer one sugary drink from the other one? Because it's that. It's so that mechanism, it doesn't affect privacy or it's not surveilling on the employees. Being able to leverage that mechanism by itself, certainly if you combine it with an AI, changes everything. And it actually, again, gives you a fighting chance, knowing that the average person is 2.5 hours a day on social media. At work, that's around an hour of your work. This is studies. An hour they're spending on the other person's platforms, not on yours.
Right.
So how do you actually ensure that information, whatever it is not competing with what you want to communicate? That's because who are you as an organization if Ryan is sitting at home and he doesn't know what's going on, but he
Right.
does receive information via social media about your organization, which might not be so beneficial, William. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
if you're not able to reach and communicate, whether it's an employee relationship or whether it's a relationship, it ends.
What are we talking about here? Size of company that should be using
Mhm.
the platform? Is it based on size of employee count, the complexity of their infrastructure? What are we looking at here?
I would argue that if you are if there's a need for for an intranet or SharePoint implementation, then there's a need for NetPresenter. So if you're like 10, 20, don't bother. If you're hundreds, sure. Certainly if there's multiple sites. But our customers range from the hundreds to organizations which have hundreds of thousands of employees. So
The idea of if you're using SharePoint, if you're going to do an install of SharePoint, then you should probably be doing this.
it's
Maybe even in
communication.
tandem.
Exactly. It's communication one-on-one. It's
Right.
basically you're not communicating unless the information has actually reached the other person.
Well, the irony is you could actually drive adoption to SharePoint. with and
Exactly.
give a
Yes,
message,
yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
if something goes live there that's really relevant, super relevant to people. And like you mentioned earlier, it was an off, it was a throwaway comment, but it was just like an ISO guide, right? 99% of the population is not going to care about that. There's some new ISO
Nobody
guidelines, right?
cares. Yeah.
But the little bitty piece of people that do care, that could be a message that goes to them and say, "Oh, by the way, it's on SharePoint," and they would care.
Yeah.
So it's understanding your audience, the segmentation of your audience, and understanding what they need to know. Again, emergencies are
Right.
different, but what they want, what they need to know, and putting it where they're going to see. I love that. Now, question that comes up, and I know Ryan's probably going to ask something similar.
Uh-huh.
It's you're selling to HR, you're selling to employee communications, let's say. Do they ever get bogged down with how do we know it's working?
No. The AI actually, there's a lot of statistics built in there. You can see
Oh, cool.
if it was seen, if it was understood, if it was how often. The smart AI actually takes care of the understanding part even, and not just seen, but understanding the
Right.
information. So back to I think it was Ryan was saying, we did studies, quantitative studies on intranet versus intranet and NetPresenter, and to no surprise, if you put your headlines of intranet, you need to know information of your intranet, your SharePoint. On NetPresenter, we had the triple the amount of people who knew those headlines. Number one, so they knew the most important information they should need to know. But
Right.
also, the internet was, on average, at that organization, there were several ones, twice as well visited, so 2.5 actually. So basically, it's kind of like teasers. It's always a teaser. If you actually give people the essence of the information, typically that's enough. And those who are interested actually click through, because you can click through on these screensavers or screens, or use QR codes and go to the article. If it's a big screen, they actually visit the internet more. So it's kind of the synergy between your media, because it's not about the media, it's not about internet or NetPresenter even. It's all about them being useful tools for the organization.
Right.
So, Frank, not all the messages, William, you just alluded to this, not all of the
Right.
messages are emergency,
No,
right? So this is communication, this is content, this is affecting, obviously, employee engagement, driving engagement, etc. For someone that's listening to this or watching, and they're kind of like, okay, I get what NetPresenter does, but what do I actually put out there? What am I going to communicate? What are some ideas? Maybe
That's a
paint
great
that
question.
picture for them.
What kind of information you put on there, you mean?
Yeah, kind of some of the use cases or content that you see most effective companies are pushing that are non-emergency messages. So just content that's driving
Contents driving engagements are basically the information they consider important. I know that's kind of it's but basically if they have the key information they have available, for example, as the headlines of the news section of an intranet, you literally put them on NetPresenter. So and what sort of information is that? It's always there's a certain pride of the organization. It's also social cohesion. So our successes, our new products, you want your employees to be your marketeers as well when they go home. It could be completion about projects. It could be sales targets being met. It could actually be compliance information that they should or shouldn't do, especially possible in many healthcare customers in the US. Obviously you don't want to get a medicine which you shouldn't, according to the FDA, give anymore, or at the wrong doses, or learn from mistakes. It basically it's kind of like what's urgent and what's important. Urgent is more timely, and important can take a longer time for that information to bring across.
I see training being an important component to
Absolutely.
the communications. But what if they have a comms degree, if they came up through comms, they know, they understand all that stuff, but this is a new medium for them. It's a new way to kind of connect with their employees, because they've been used to communicating through email or through maybe SharePoint or something else. So now it's training them and getting them to understand, here's a tool that you have access to. You understand your audience. You can separate messages. You can do different things with messages, again, depending on whether or not it's important or urgent. You can have a long tail if it's important and people don't consume it. You can make it a longer tail to where you get consumption. You get
Yes.
them to understanding.
It's actually exactly, and that was what Ryan said. He's right. What kind of information? Basically, this is actually whatever management or HR or MT thinks everybody should know. But it could also be on a local level. For example, the parking Q1 can't be used tomorrow, or there's bad weather upcoming. There's a tornado warning in support of a weather alert. All these kind of things. If you really want everybody to know like that, that's an NetPresenter. If you got long tails and there's big manuals, put it on your intranet, please. But you can literally say everybody should know this. Put it in NetPresenter. And basically, the AI can feed you back. Oh, so many people know it. Do you want more people to know it? And you just turn on the big knob, and the AI ensures that more people actually see that information, or the information is in terms of frequency or on more devices is seen. So it can't be. It's a very visual tool. Imagine working for your offices, and literally it's everywhere. So, that in terms of what marketeers call the amount of impressions of your messages, that's just NetPresenter is just not comparable to any other tool.
Yeah. So Frank, when you get into demos and you're talking to prospects and you're walking them through a demo, where do you find that they're kind of like the most excited? They look at this, you get them into the demo, and they're like, get them to this point, and you just know that they're excited. Now you've got them.
Yeah. It's kind of like the beauty always is that we try to run pilot at organizations. It's so easily, as William said, it's very easy to deploy because you run on existing networks and you deploy. And then if you want to put a cap on the head of the CEO, you put his or her picture on there with a key message as a picture, and very proud of this and that and that. And they're solved, because literally working through these big hallways, and they look left and right, and all the unused devices, typically 60-70% of the devices, are displaying their picture and their key message. That is kind of like being instantly famous. That's just sold. We had many sales because we had people working from integrators, system integrators, being deployed at a big organization. And people say, what's that on your computer always appearing as a screensaver? So it basically sells itself once you actually show it. And I think that's a big compliment, because that means we're doing something well, I guess.
Ryan, I think with the right company, you could use a lot of memes to convey stuff to make people laugh, but consume the knowledge nonetheless. Like they're going to consume it and remember it, but do it in a funny way. Like but it's going to take the right culture, maybe the right C-suite to be able to pull that off. But I could see that working where it's humor.
Exactly. Yeah. One of our most popular features is having moving GIFs in there. So people just type in a message, they just take their favorite moving GIF, they throw it in there, and it just automatically adds fun to the component thereof.
I would be kind of horrible implementer of this, because I'd send out the emergency messages, but I'd also start sending out some poop emoji, like all this. I'd send what do you call those? Not anagrams. What do you call those things where you just have the emojis and you got to guess what the sentence is?
Yeah, puzzles or something like that.
I would do that all day.
The gamification is actually a lot of fun, because basically they're forms of engagement of your staff. So the prize to win, the FIFA tournaments, it could be all these kind of fun components, which that's kind of cohesion is so important. And just a couple of persons sitting in the corner playing FIFA is not fun, but taking pictures of it and sharing that over the organization while you work home is like, boy, I should have been at the office,
Well, like Euros are going on right now. And if you've got a company, you're an American-based company, but you've got a lot of presence in Europe, the UK, Europe, you've got a lot of presence there. Having those scores go live after the game, after the match is over, and just popping that out to the European audience, that France just beat so-and-so. It's like, it doesn't take much to get engagement.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you, Frank, this what I love about this conversation is You're probably the first person I'll be able to talk to from a tech perspective, HR tech perspective, that talks about employee audience groups in this way. Like, so much of it is
Mm,
they don't think like a marketer. They don't think like a media executive.
Okay.
They they think like a like again like a comms person. But now you've given them this toy that now they can do so much more with, and they can then segment again. Again, is this, to Ryan's point, is this something that everybody needs to know?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it something that just this group or this group needs to go? So like ERGs, SI, special interest groups, all those types of internal things. Like they don't have to go out to everybody. But the beauty is we're you're taking away all that spam. You're taking away all
Yeah.
that email that just gets deleted. And even if it's texting, it just gets deleted because it
Absolutely.
wasn't for them. Like if you had an
yeah.
ERG that cares about one thing or another, and that's not their bit, why are you sending them a message? Why are they
Yeah.
receiving it?
Yeah.
So I could see the comms professionals both loving it, but also having to have a deeper understanding of audience groups within their employee population.
Yeah, and we have many customers in the US. For example, famous example of George Washington Memorial Hospital, long-term customer, and they even use it as far back as the inauguration of, can you imagine, Obama for emergency messages, but also for training purposes, for where should people sleep and things like that. So we have many of these large organizations using this for many years in the US. It has been an integral part of the media mix in the organization. It's because obviously communication should be fun because fun is more effective. We established that fun is more effective. Then you also need to make sure that enough people see it. So that means you need to repeat it and you need to have it on as many places as possible. And the third is you shouldn't spam them. You shouldn't disrupt them while at work because then your productivity goes down the drain. Doing all these things while also ensuring your network is not affected in a negative way, and it can also work during emergency. There's some pretty solid tech involved there. Just for me, this product, even after all these years, it's a lot of fun. It's like being your own broadcaster without the cost and without the bandwidth. Coming from old, very old days of the Commodore Amiga video toaster era. I'm a long-term, multimedia geek there, and that was cool and everything. But what we can do right now with these existing networks and everything, that's you have all the advantage of being a broadcaster without the cost and without the production cost and all these things.
Curious to see, have you been able to grab the increase in engagement from clients that are using the software? So, for example, a client who was not using the platform prior
Yeah.
versus now, and the employees consuming the messages and completing whatever that task is. I know it's not the only use case, but maybe it's open enrollment. Open enrollment, for example, maybe there's a 60% completion rate when we're 2 days before. With NetPresenter, it's now 87%. Are you able to gather that information, or can your organization track that?
It's very difficult to establish the amount of productivity increase, and what we actually can say is there's a lot more retention of critical information or crucial information, and this is the engagement. So people feel more happy and better informed. That came from that quantitative study. So they feel better understood, better informed. Because this is a bring medium. It brings information instead you having to look on things. That's a different. Further, that yes, we had customers literally saying, well, we're more productive now because they know what to do, they know what's going on. But again, no large quantitative studies on that we don't have that. It's so basically the proof of the pudding is in the eating, meaning if you are able to get more employees engaged and better informed of what's management thinks is important, and they feel better about that, what does it mean for the organization? Customers are very happy. The interesting thing is that we do believe that this should be a crucial, integral part of intranets. And actually, where our business is booming is that most of our customers nowadays who have SharePoint come to us, they all want NetPresenter as well. So because it's a plugin into SharePoint, it's really new. They can literally in SharePoint type in the message, make a nice visual, and boom, it goes. So they have manual control of what's being put on there. But let's say we're lazy, and then the AI can literally take your headlines and distill it and make it fit into a screen with a nice picture and everything in there. And it's basically your intranet just goes out to your employees in an attractive way, showing they know the headlines. And a lot more actually go back to the internet to revisit. So basically, I would declare this a crucial add-on for any SharePoint or intranet out there if you really want to be effective, because it costs a lot of money. Why not actually maximize that investment as well?
Right.
So Slack, Teams, and Google Chat, are they friends?
We integrate with tools like Zoom, Power BI, SharePoint, all these integrations. We have those. That's more on the departmental level. You don't can have a Slack session with 10,000 employees. That doesn't work. So it has its place for sure. We use Teams, for example, as well. Most of our customers are Microsoft. It has its place. Again, this is a little bit higher up level in terms of the amount of people you can reach.
And it's also the appropriateness of who you reach. That 10,000 person Slack channel, you could do that, but
yeah, that's going to keep you busy.
Don't care about.
It's like these Facebook Messenger groups now that the some pages have. Good idea.
It's not relevant.
Exit out of every one I get bumped into.
It's the new spam, basically.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I get that in WhatsApp a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, I've got one more. Do you got something?
Go for it. Go for it.
And this is going to be an it depends answer. Standing NetPresenter up at an enterprise, let's say you have 5,000 employees. What does that look like?
I'm not going to name numbers here, but I can basically say we have pricing which is appropriate for an add-on to an intranet, meaning that we would be a 1/10 or 1/20 of the price of an intranet.
Right.
If not less.
No, I think you meant I misspoke. How fastly can they go live with the presenter? Sorry.
You mean implement?
Implement,
yes.
Yep. I said if you have control over your network, it's basically we work on PC and then also to Mac. Basically, if you control them and you send out a package and it's all on the devices, it's if behind the computer, the big screens, there's a Windows-ish client as well. Then it's the same. We treat it as a kind of a desktop. So literally, we have implementations of tens of thousands of computers running up in a matter of hours. It's literally that easy. It's like literally replacing a screensaver. That's very fast. And there's intelligent caching of content. It even works on small thin clients, etc., etc. We've been around for 30 years. All these things and quirks were evened out. So no more bringing down of Pentagon networks. And that never happened, of course. It was just the story.
Frank, this has been amazing. I think I love what you guys are doing. I've never seen NetPresenter in action, so maybe one day we can. I think I love what you guys are doing. So thank you for coming on.
You guys are fun. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and it's very nice and easygoing. And well, gentlemen, thank you very much, and looking forward to maybe meet me.